guess what? About a year ago, I was at a Running USA conference. He gave a talk on marketing. Peter's been a race director, and his profession is marketing. And so he's got a real knack for understanding how to kind of grow your races and grow your business. So without further ado, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. About 12 years ago, I just decided to start a running event. I was producing television commercials and movies as my day job, but for whatever reason, I decided to start my own running event in Santa Monica, and it was benefiting Heal the Bay, a big environmental nonprofit that I had been on the board of for many years. And I built it up, pretty good size after a couple of years, and I sold it to the LA Marathon, just as the LA Marathon had been purchased in 2008, and I became the head of marketing at the LA Marathon. As part of that, the leadership team, I would go out on many of our sponsor brand partner pitches. And so whether it was Honda or K-Swiss or Nike or whomever, I'd go there with Dave Kluin, the head of sales, and we would together pitch the brand partners. And so one day we got a meeting with Kaiser Permanente, which is a massive healthcare operation. And I'm driving out there with Dave, and I had it all figured out in my head. They were going to be a presenting sponsor. I'd put them on the website. I'd put them in the emails. I had it all figured out. We got out there for the meeting. And just at the last second, I thought, why don't I just ask him a couple questions? Just ask him kind of what they were thinking, what they would do with the LA Marathon. And their representative said, well, we have 6,000 doctors in Southern California, and a lot of them are overweight and fat, and they have no credibility with their patients when they're advising them on healthcare. How can you help us get our doctors in shape? And I was like, what? I was so not ready for that. And so what had happened is I had by accident stumbled into this idea of your sponsors shouldn't be partners. Your sponsors shouldn't be sponsors. They should be brand partners with you. And I had just by accident kind of stumbled into that I happened to ask the right question. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is moving from sponsors to partners, because the world as you know it is changing a lot right now. So before we get started, I want to let you know I've got this presentation on my website. I'll give you that URL at the end. You don't need to take detailed notes on everything, because you can download the whole PDF from my website. It's up there now, and at the end I'll tell you what that address is. What we're going to talk about today, I want to get into some of the why. There are many reasons why you would bring on a brand partner or not. Can anybody give me a couple reasons why you'd bring on a brand partner? Who's got any idea?
Money.
What do you mean running? What does that mean?
Money.
Oh, money, yes. Okay, that's one. That's the obvious one. What else? Why else? Recognition, great. Any others?
Bigger network.
Great. Added value, bigger network. Anything else? Aligned values. Thank you. We're going to talk a lot about that. All right, there are many reasons that you bring on a brand partner, and we're going to explore those. Money being only one of them, and we're going to get into some of the other reasons. So today I'm going to talk about 5 strategies that you need to know to help move your program from sponsors to partners. And if you just pay attention to these 5 things and you use these strategies, I guarantee you will have some increased success in your program. Okay, number 1, understand your event. And this is the same thing when I talk about marketing with events, I tell them the same thing. If you don't understand what kind of event you have and what you stand for and what your mission is, how are you going to align with the right brand partners? So that's the most important thing. I see a lot of events and, frankly, big businesses out there that are trying to be all things to all people. And I recommend to not be that way. I recommend that you be very clear on who you are as a brand. When I was at the LA Marathon, I spent a couple months with Russ Pillar, my sort of partner and our president, working on what our mission was going to be. And what we decided was we were going to stand for, we inspire athletes and connect communities. And I will tell you that was the single most important decision and thing we did at the entire LA Marathon. When I went to meet with every brand partner, potential brand partner, Honda, multi-million-dollar deal, that's what I would lead with. When I would meet with running clubs, with charities, with city council members and politicians, I would always start with, here's what we stand for. And people had guardrails that they understood what our point of view was. So that's super important. I like this quote, moving fast isn't the same as going somewhere. So you want to be going somewhere. And what happens is, if you're not going somewhere, if you don't know where you're going or what kind of event you have, you end up kind of being all over the place. And maybe every sponsor ends up being potentially right for you, which should not be the case. And then what happens is your race shirt ends up looking like that. So we can just agree that's wrong, and don't be that event, okay? All right, next thing, number 2. Money is not the only currency, and like we just talked about, there are a lot of different upsides that a brand partner can bring to your event besides money. And I know a lot of you know this, but it's always good to just review it. Okay, let's just talk about a few of these. Okay, media is one, media reach. So a brand partner can bring huge media reach to you through their own channels, and a rising tide lifts all boats. You can then sell that media reach to all your other brand partners, right? So it'll elevate your whole event. Okay, here's a couple examples. On the left, ASICS, when they were the sponsor of the LA Marathon, and this was after my time there, but they bought a bunch of billboards all over to LA to tell millions of people about the event. The LA Marathon didn't buy those, ASICS did. So that's a great example. Here's an event I was involved with last fall, the Malibu Half Marathon. Lululemon was a brand partner of ours, and they used their social media channels to amplify our event. That's great. That gets us out to a group that I would not have gotten to. So that adds a lot of value. Okay, next thing is the message. Every brand sends a message out to to not only your runners, but to other brands. So at that Malibu Half Marathon, we decided on a very deliberate sequence. We wanted to get Lululemon first because we knew that would be a keystone partner that would be aspirational not only for runners, but for other brand partners. It's a credibility enhancer. And when you get it right, a group of brand partners feels like what you're saying to your runners is, we get you, we understand you, and that's important. So for the Malibu Half, the first thing we did is we understood the event. We created art that felt right for an event in Malibu, including copy, 100% chance of inspiration. I like that line. Then we went out and we got a group of sponsors that felt like a circle of sponsors that felt right for that event in Malibu. If you know Malibu, you know that this group, Lululemon, Sage Wellness, which is a really fantastic and growing Canadian brand, natural aromatherapy products, the Boo Kombucha, Clean LA, a organic meal delivery service, Just Water, sustainably sourced water, and BMW, they had all their hybrid vehicles there. That feels like Malibu. That's the right group for that event. It's not the right group for every event. If you have a different kind of event in a different place, you might have a completely different set of sponsors that are right for you. But the point is, we were very thoughtful and methodical about what kind of sponsors and partners we put together for that event. Here's another example. Roger Federer at Wimbledon. Look at Rolex there, right behind him. That's perfect for Wimbledon. In London, on the grass, wearing white, one of the grand slams of tennis. That just feels right for that crowd and that event. Here's another one I like, Airbnb Brooklyn Half. Airbnb brings value not only in terms of, they provide places to stay in Brooklyn where there aren't a lot of hotels, but Airbnb brings a bunch of brand values with it. It's tech, it's forward, it's hospitality, it's design. There are a lot of, it's new economy. So it brings all that kind of cachet to the event, and it elevates the event. The event is cooler with Airbnb than without it, in my opinion. Here's another Lululemon. This is their Seawees Half Marathon, their event in Vancouver. When you see that and you see the Lululemon logo, you don't have to know anything else. You're like, okay, there's a female point of view, there's great gear, there's sort of goal setting and their purpose, there's great retail stores involved. All that energy comes with that logo. Okay? Next thing, very important runner experience. So at the Malibu Half Marathon, we decided, before we went after even a single brand partner, we decided that our point of view on the event, if the event was going to grow long-term, it was going to grow because of positive word of mouth and people telling their friends what a great event it was. So we decided we would go after brand partners who are going to bring great runner experience with them. So if you're going to be the kind of brand partner that's going to show up in the expo behind a table and hand out pieces of paper, sorry, you are not welcome there, okay? If you're not into creating great experiences for our runners, you're not welcome here. So that was our point of view. So we did not prioritize cash, we prioritized runner experience. We'll get the cash later, 2 or 3 years down the road when the event is huge, okay? So it's instructive to look at some, I believe, some examples of events that are getting it wrong, okay? So I was at the Big Sur Marathon last a year ago, and this is their finish line expo. Anybody here run Big Sur? Everybody done that event? Okay, so you know it is arguably the world's most premium marathon course. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable, right? You've got Pacific Coast Highway to yourself, no other cars, totally silent. It's like this religious wilderness experience. And yet you finish up in the expo, you're sitting in the dirt in front of the Michelob Ultra tent. Now, that's a super premium course. Is Michelob Ultra a super premium beer? No, it's a cheap, low quality beer. Those two things should not be together. And that's no diss on Michelob Ultra. I know they support running. There are a lot of events. They're right for a lot of events. I just don't believe they're right for this event. I think what would have been right here is Lagunitas IPA Pavilion with a great wooden seating area where people could sit, or local champagnes making mimosas, from local vineyards, that kind of thing. Given that event and that route and the fact that people have flown in from Brazil, Germany, Thailand, Canada, all over the country. Okay, here's another one. I was at one of the rock and roll events last year. Have you guys ever seen the teeth whitening guys at expos? Okay, I just personally think what that says about your event is that says, we're desperate, we'll take $1 from anyone. Okay, and I just think that brings the whole expo down, okay? Then here on the right, you have a little Toyota thing in this sad, empty, dark room with a monitor and nobody's watching it. That doesn't serve the runners, that doesn't serve Toyota, that doesn't do any good for anybody. That's just sad and lonely, right? Okay, so here's some things that I did last year that I liked these activations, okay? Here's Sage Wellness. I told you about the Canadian brand. This is before all the runners showed up at the Finish Line Festival. This is the little pavilion they set up. And you see the bike there on the left. They were riding around handing out these topical analgesics to people. Sage brought 12 people down from Vancouver, including their CEO and founder, who spent 3 hours on the finish line handing out to every single runner a $25 gift pack of pain relief aromatherapy stuff. It was so premium, and they were so thoughtful in everything they did, in how their products were displayed, in how they spoke to our runners. This is just a small part of their activation, but it was thoughtful and appropriate for this event, and I loved it. Here we had Just Water, again, that sustainably sourced water. People want cold water, and they want a brand that aligns with who they are. There's one of the BMW hot rod hybrid vehicles in front of the Lululemon store in Malibu. You could take it for a test drive. We had packet pickup at the Lululemon store, and we drove huge revenue at the store by handing out a gift card to every single runner. Between $5 and $75, it was a mystery. You didn't know what you were going to get, and it was the biggest revenue in the store's history. And so again, runners got a gift card, they got a discount on stuff, Lululemon got traffic, and it was a better experience for people. Okay, race day is another place brand partners can add value. You saw, for instance, that Sage tent right here. I really wanted to get I was obsessed with the idea of serving acai bowls to finishers of the half marathon, because I just felt like in Malibu, that was the Malibu thing to eat after a running event. I couldn't find a restaurant or a partner to do that, so I just called this food truck, that's what he does. He charged, people paid for their own acai bowls, but then it became like a piece of art direction, at the Finish Line Festival. It looked good, you could see it, the runners were happy, there was a line all afternoon there, and it felt right. So even though I didn't have a brand partner, I created that runner experience anyway. Okay, third thing out of 3, okay, align on values, and I know that did not get by me, that you already thought of this. Okay, so again, if you've done number one, you understand what your event is. If you've thought carefully through all the different kinds of currency that events can bring, now you got to think about, I want to go after brands that align with my values. And whatever your event, like my event in Santa Monica was environmentally based. Another event might be based around another charity. Another event might be all about a city, the New York City Marathon. There are all kinds of different values that you could have, but make sure you go after partners who feel right for that. Does that feel right to you? Cigarettes and Olympic track and field. No, that's clearly not aligned on values, okay? And it's okay to say no. It's okay. Once you know who you are, it becomes much simpler. You go after partners that are right for you, and if a partner comes in that's out of left field that just does not feel right, Michelob Light or Michelob Ultra, for instance, if that's not right for your event, you can say, hey, thank you so much for your interest, but we're going after a different kind of brand partner this year. So for instance, here's an example. When I had my own Santa Monica Classic running event, the very first year, DirecTV came to me and said, hey, we want to bring this Hummer down, put it in the middle of your expo. We're going to have all these TVs in it. I was like, that is awesome. Yes. And the next day, Marty Church, who works for me, came to me. He said, Peter, dude, you've got an environmentally themed event. It's benefiting Heal the Bay. You can't have a Hummer in the middle of your expo. It's like, oh my God, you're so right. So I called DirecTV, I said, sorry, we just can't do it. And they were really bummed. But at the same time, having a really tight event with fewer brand partners set the table for the next year. I got a huge sponsorship deal from Nike and a huge deal from Whole Foods. And so, because they appreciated the fact that I was being true to who I was. And so it's okay to say no, and it can pay off in the long run. Okay, now we're on to item number 4. Okay. Think like a marketing agency. Now you've built a list of potential brand partners that you think might be right. You know who you are. You understand the currency. Now, how are you going to close that deal with them? You're going to think like a marketing agency. So the world has changed a lot. We're in the information age. The industrial age is behind us. And what brands want from events has completely changed. They really want you to be a marketer for them. They want you to achieve specific objectives. It's not about, the value exchange used to be, hey, sponsor, give me a check and I'll put your name on the finish line banner and maybe on the website and some emails. Those days are gone, okay? You got to work a lot harder and you got to have a lot smarter program than that. I just had lunch with somebody from Cliff Bar. And she was like, listen, those events that come to us and just want to put our name on stuff, we're done with them. That's over. We don't do that anymore. You got to come with a whole 360 approach for us that hits on all these different channels and achieves our objective. So the important thing is when you go for that first meeting with a potential brand partner or that first phone call, you got to ask a bunch of questions. Do not go in there and try and pitch them something right out of the gate, okay? Don't feel pressured to do that. You want to ask a bunch of questions, come back, put together a plan, and then go back to them. Here's a mistake I have seen many times. The gold, silver, bronze sponsorship thing, okay? I highly recommend you do not do that because that assumes that you know exactly what that brand partner's objectives are and that one of your 3 cookie cutter approaches is going to satisfy all of their objectives, okay? Which I guarantee you is not the case. So don't do that. So let's just say we're done with that, okay? Now, here are the questions that we're going to ask, all right? And there are more than this if you want, but here are the basic ones that are important. You need to download all of this. Like I work with all kinds of different marketing clients. When I work with Nike or Lululemon or whoever it is, I go in for that first meeting, I just ask 50 questions. I don't come up with any ideas or concepts. I just want to learn. And then I'll go back and circle the wagons with my team, and then we'll come up with a smart program for them. Okay, number 1, you want to ask, what's your objective? What are you trying to achieve here? Is it Brooks shoes and you're trying to sell a bunch of footwear to our runners? Is it a charity partner that's trying to raise funds for the charity? Is it Kaiser who wants to get their doctors in shape? Like what is it? It could be all over the map, and don't assume that you know what that objective is, even when it sounds obvious. At the LA Marathon we were pitching Honda, and I was thinking, okay, we're going to make people go to their stores to sign up for a race. We're going to help them sell cars. And Honda said, no, whoa, easy, speedboat. He said, look, this comes out of our community management budget. What we're trying to do here is just tell the community that we're involved in civic events. This is not about selling cars, okay? I was assuming they were trying to sell cars to our event. I was wrong. So don't make assumptions. Number 2, what's interesting to you about running? Is it the fact that there's a majority of the participants are female? Is it the age group? Is it the fact that you're in a particular urban area? What is it? You need to know what their interest in running is. Do you have a budget? So a lot of brands, a classic thing is, well, we don't have a budget, but we have a lot of product. So for instance, really common would be a water brand or something that could count as budget reducing barter. You do have that in your budget and there is value there. But you want to be clear, do you have a budget or not? They might not know, but at least you've asked. Okay, what are some other successful activations you've done? This is important because you want to know what their baseline, their expectation is for success. So what is it that you guys think makes an event successful? And you want to learn about that because that's how they're going to judge you. And so you need to...
What does activation mean?
Activation is a marketing campaign around an event or an experiential marketing event that they've done before. So maybe they've done other events. Maybe they sponsored, like when we were working with BMW on the Malibu Half Marathon, they had done a bunch of golf tournaments and they were tired of golf. They felt like they were talking to the same crowd over and over. But we learned from them what they were spending. We did a bunch of also background research. We knew somebody at one of the golf tournaments, so we could ask what they were spending. So we learned what they didn't like about golf, what they did, and that informed our overall plan for them. Next thing, what does your brand stand for? Again, so you can align on values, you want to know, what does your brand stand for? So for instance, you might kind of know that, if it's Nike, it's all about performance and technology. Or it might be like when we met with Sage Wellness, they didn't have a single store in the US. I had barely heard of them. I didn't know. I had to ask them what their brand was about. And the more I spoke to them, the more I understood that they would be a perfect fit for Malibu. Okay, and then you want to go so how can we help you with your goal? I know you already have an idea at that point of how you can help them, but why don't you ask the brand partner what they think you can do for them? And that, again, you want to get their expectations down. That's important. Okay, those are the questions. Again, this will be on my website. Okay, number 5. Once you've got a brand partner involved, you've got to structure your team around serving their needs. Okay, and again, you guys all probably know this, but it's worth understanding how your team can fit in with the needs of your brand partners. So I'm going to list about 6 different roles here. When I started my little running event in Santa Monica, I did most of these myself, everything except operations. When I got to the LA Marathon, I had a little bit bigger team. At the Malibu Half Marathon, I hired a bunch of people freelance who are category experts in all these different things so we could operate at a very high level across all these different roles. Okay, so this is not about, you got to have this full-time staff doing all this. You got to be crafty about how you get very good people to help you. Number 1 is partnerships. Who's making the list of the potential brand partners? Who's going out there and doing proposals for them? Who's doing recaps at the end of the event? Super important, by the way, to do within a week of your event, a really thoughtful and nailed down recap, wins, opportunities for each brand partner, okay, what they got out of your event. So somebody handling partnerships or somebody with that expertise. Number 2, community management. I have done community management with my events since the beginning. I've always spent a lot of time out there with running clubs, with local communities, with politicians. At the Malibu event, I really came to understand how powerful that can be for a brand partner. So what I recommend is with a 5K or 10K, have a part-time community manager on board 3 or 4 months before your event. With a major marathon, it would be longer than that. And at Malibu, what we did is we prioritized 3 different groups for the community manager to interact with. Number 1, traditional running clubs. Number 2, night run crews. In cities, those are growing, and that's a huge group now. And number 3, running retailers, all those specialty running retailers. And the community manager would go to each different run clubs and different retailers, and he would go in with this question: hey, we got a running event, how can we help you? Okay, not how can you help us, how can we be of service to you? And then that immediately takes down the wall between the community and your event. And the community goes, wow, they really are here to help us. Then you start thinking about, well, how can I integrate my brand partner? Because what the brand partners want is they want to get their products in the hands of people. So maybe if you had a footwear and apparel partner, you could go to the run clubs and give them raffle items to raffle off. Or you can give them free entries to your event to raffle off. Or you can drive people to a running retailer. And then what you can do is shoot photos, give it to your social media team, and your social media account is promoting all these different groups. And so what you're offering then to your brand partner is a 3-month engagement leading up to and through your event rather than like a 1-week engagement. That's worth a lot more. You can ask for more money. Most brands don't have grassroots marketing teams out there to sample their stuff all the time to different groups. They'll love you for that. Like, hey, Cliff Bar, send us 4 or 5 cases of stuff and we're going to sample your bars at different run clubs at night. So that kind of thing is very powerful and it's important. Marketing and media. Somebody's got to be in charge of your marketing plan and your media spend and how you're getting your message out and how you're integrating your brand partners into that messaging. Very important. Okay, social media execution. It's 2017. Okay, you really need somebody on the dials every day on social media. Okay, there's two parts of this. One is, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, probably Snapchat, and another is paid Facebook. Like you heard Eric's talk just now, paid Facebook is its own whole category. I personally use an agency to help me because it's a very complicated platform that changes all the time. So I pay an extra 20 to 30% to an agency to have them manage those buys. But again, you need to have this person understand who your brand partners are when a new one comes on board, what's the point of view, what are you doing with them, and kind of get that mix right. As a CEO or a race director or a president of an event, it is your job to get all these different people or different roles working together in synchronicity, which is hard, by the way, and takes some mistakes, and it's not easy. Okay, design and copywriting. This is really important. When brands are integrated with your event, when they're represented on your website, in collateral, in social media, in a Facebook ad, it needs to look good. You got to represent that brand well. They don't want to be in. So when I say design, I don't mean like, hey, your nephew just graduated from college and he knows how to use Photoshop. No, I mean a professional, really, really good designer, which they're around, they're not hard to find. I highly recommend getting that. And copywriting. Copywriting is important. That's your brand voice. So like at the Malibu half marathon collateral that I showed you where it said 100% chance of inspiration. That was a really nice line that I couldn't have come up with, but the copywriter I hired did come up with it. So also above and beyond that, there's content creation, like particularly video and blog posts, which are important. And we're in a golden age of video right now, particularly on Facebook. You get so much play when you upload a video directly into the Facebook platform. But it needs to be good. It needs to be relevant. So you need somebody who knows what they're doing to create that kind of storytelling. And again, you can find these people, but you got to look and you got to put this team together. And lastly, operations, which is underrated as a component of the brand partnership landscape. How your brands are represented, particularly on race day and at the expo, in the Finish Line Festival. Operations needs to be aligned on that, understand that there is a priority on creating amazing experiences for your runners and integrating the brands into that landscape and serving your brands. Super important. So you want to get all these teams working together. So, so now we're done with our 5 things. Who can tell me, okay, I got a little gift here from Sage Wellness. Who can tell me what the first thing was? The first thing?
Understanding your own.
Okay, thank you. This is for you. Now, you know what? Sitting at your table next to you is Sarah Webster Wiley from Lululemon, the regional manager of Lululemon. Sarah, could I give away a $100 gift card? Okay, let's do it. What was the second to last thing just before this?
Things like a marketing agency.
Okay, you got it. Sarah, can you give a card? All right, there you go. Okay, so just to review, thank you, Sarah. Understand your event. Money's not the only currency. Align on values. Think like a marketing agency, and build a team, okay? So those are your 5 strategies. And before we get to questions, I'll just remind you the talk is The deck is online at that URL, abrhm.com/runsignup. It's there now. And if you want to reach me, that's my email, pabraham@abrhm.com, and I'm on Twitter at @PeterAbraham. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about this?
I landed a nice brand for a race that lasted about 5 years.
Yeah.
Home Depot. So
Yep.
it was the Home Depot Mid-May Classic, and everything was running well. And then after 6, 7 years, they decided to go in another direction. And the event continued, but everyone on earth kept saying, how come there's no more Home Depot race? What happened to it? And I kept saying, it's the same race, it's just a new name.
Yeah.
And it was very hard to overcome that.
Yeah, that's challenging. So what I recommend is really making sure that you maintain, because that can happen at any time. I mean, I had Nike on I had Red Bull. They had a new brand 10 years ago, a kombucha brand. It was the Carpe Diem Santa Monica Classic, and then they changed their strategy and they were out. I had Nike for 4 years, then they were out. So I had Whole Foods for 2 years, then they were out. So that happens. It's just a reality and it's no reflection on you. The important thing is to keep your brand of your event strong. So like I see a lot of even major city marathons that completely change their branding and the look of their logo to reflect the title sponsor. I believe that is a mistake because I believe you should keep your brand strong so it's less of a disruption when you have to change brand partners, because that happens, it's a reality. Somebody else was...
So is there a place, like if you have that heating and cooling company or whatever that still wants to like be a part, is there any place that makes sense then?
100%. You just have to be crafty about what you're doing with them, what is their offering to people. Like maybe you give think if you gave a free air conditioner to somebody, like you know, a $5,000 installation. Let me tell you, there are a lot of people that would really be happy with that. So I think it's about being clever about what you're building with them, and maybe you have some kind of cool zone in the expo, like a portable cooling thing if it's a hot day, or in the post-race area, they can or on the course. You know, I always wanted to do this. I saw one race 8 years ago in Europe that had a giant airplane propeller fan, like a special effects fan on the course that you'd run in front of and it would give you a boost. Like you can be clever about things like that, right? That serve even the most either obscure or non-sexy partner. You can still do cool stuff with them, but it's about being thoughtful and thinking it through. Joe.
A lot of race directors ask me, you know, somebody that sells sponsorships, you know, and there's people out there that'll sell it for, they run a retainer, like a monthly retainer, and usually they come back to me, they hire somebody, and it doesn't work out. What do you suggest for those types of situations? Well,
you know, I think it's good to have help, but there has to be a huge internal effort. Like as you saw, building the team, it can't be just like, hey, yeah, go get me some sponsors. That might have worked 10 years ago. That doesn't work anymore. It's got to be like, you got to go through all this stuff. It's a process and it's work, and you can't shortcut the process if you want to do a great job. And you got to get the whole team working on the same page. So I believe it's good to have some help, like that partnerships person on the list who really understands this process, but they need to be communicating very closely with the entire team and getting everybody aligned. Any other questions? All right. Okay, thank you.
All right, it's lunchtime until 1:30, and lunch is out in the hallway. It's like buffet style, help yourself, and then come back and we have different tables laid out here so you can find a topic that you're interested in and sit down and have lunch with like-minded people.
It's all done well.